Can I Not Marry audio web novel chapter 57. The real president is sure to take revenge. On a Saturday morning, the wind was gentle and the sun was radiant. When Du Lacey came out of the room, she walked very strangely. Auntie Wu Sao came over and greeted Du Lacey enthusiastically. Young madam, good morning. Morning. Du Lacey replied in an unenergetic voice. Young madam, where are you feeling uncomfortable? Why do you look so haggard? Seeing Auntie Wu discovering the odds, Du Lacey suddenly wanted to cry. Haggard. It would be strange if she didn't appear haggard. Last night, after the president drove her home, his attitude was surprisingly gentle. She thought that president have finally changed personality and was more open-minded, however it seems that Prince Charming was the incarnation of the big bad wolf. The results. Proven by facts, a big bad wolf will always be a big bad wolf. No matter how gentle he is, he'll still eat meat. Right now Du Lacey wanted to recite a poem. My small pavilion which last night in vernal east wind did stand, reminds cruelly of the lost things within the moonlit. The phrase above is taken from the poem, The Beautiful Lady Yu, Ji Duo Chu Du Du Changed, Land, Gu Guo Tu, Zhuangxi, which translated to things. T_____ T supporting her waist, she made her way downstairs. Lian Jun was sitting on the dining table and eating breakfast with Lian Anna. Seeing her come down, Lian Jun lightly swept towards her direction before his mouth evoked a smile that didn't quite appear like a smile. Du Lacey suddenly felt her hair standing up, the red marks on her neck irritably burning. Mom, morning. She faintly greeted, before spontaneously sitting next to Lian Anna. Right now, her mother-in-law who usually uses her tongue instead her fists compared to her husband who uses her fists instead of her tongue is much more better. Lian Anna didn't see anything amiss, she casually drank her coffee before asking Lian Jun, is the preparation ready? Lian Jun did not answer, and stared at Du Lacey instead. You ask her. At that moment Du Lacey was sipping on milk, she wasn't careful and almost choked. Me. She looked at Lian Jun, and looked at Lian Anna. Oh heavens, can someone tell her what happened? Lian Anna frowned. You wouldn't have forgotten we're going to worship Grandpa today, right? Oh, if she, Lian Anna, didn't mention it, Du Lacey, really would have forgotten. Du Lacey laughed with extreme guilt. How could I forget? Ha. Lian Anna's head had black lines. After breakfast, some preparations were made then they set off to the cemetery. Housekeeper Yu also followed along. He has served the Lian family for more than 40 years, considered as a veteran figure. He had deep affections for his master the late Mr. Lian, so every time his late master's death anniversary came around, he would also attend to worship. When Du Lacey got into the car, in order to avoid the president and recalling the offensive images of last night's activities, she was one step ahead and sat at the back. After a while, old Yu sat beside her. Sitting in driver-passenger side was naturally her mother-in-law. Take it is her creating more chances for the pair of mother and son to have exchanges. The president should not blame her, right? Du Lacey used this to comfort herself 100 times in her heart. Very quickly the car moved, driving towards the destination of Grandpa Lian's cemetery, the hometown of the Lians. Grandpa Lian's hometown naturally is also the president's hometown. Unavoidably Du Lacey was somewhat curious. Being the daughter-in-law the Lian family, she still haven't been to the president's hometown before. Old Yu, how long will it take us to get there? Old Yu thought for a moment before replying, probably more than 4 hours. So far, yes. Old Master grew up in a foreign country, later the policy of reform and opening was established, he returned with his little family, and founded the Lian enterprise. Old Master said he has stayed a time in foreign country for a long time, yet he hasn't even made a trip to return to his hometown. So before he died, he specifically asked us to arrange his grave there, saying it's regarded as a kind of compensation. She didn't expect the late Mr. Lians to place such value on the home concept. It completely subvert Du Lacey's original solemn imagination she had of the late Mr. Lian. She even had a glimmer of respect for the late Mr. Lian she didn't have the chance to meet. Old Yu, do you know anything else about your old master? I want to listen to them. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she decided to find out all that old Yu had knowledge of the Lian family. After all, she is now a member of the family. Old Yu nodded his head and recalling through his memories. In fact, Old Master is a very good person. I remember when I just started working for Old Master, I was only in my early 20s and also a mere driver. At that time Old Master was already a big boss of a company, however he still treated us workers with kindness. I remember the first time I drove for him, I was so nervous that I accidentally stepped on his foot. The shoes he wore were very expensive. At that time I was ignorant. Unexpectedly, Old Master didn't even crease his eyebrows. In turn he comforted me instead, telling me not to worry. Such a great master, how did he? Speaking to this point, Old Yu's eyes were moist. Sure enough, older people love to reminiscence. Du Lacey didn't expect to inadvertently ask regarding this matter, unexpectedly causing the 60-year-old to shed tears. This made her feel a bit guilty. Pulling a tissue from her pocket, she gave it to old Yu. Don't be sad. If Grandpa knew you were so heartbroken because of him, he'll be so sad and uncomfortable. Old Yu wiped the corners of his eyes. Young madam, you are really kind-hearted. If old master was still alive, he would have certainly adored you. The late Mr. Lian would have loved her. Du Lacey took a glance at the president and then stared at Lian Anna, and then she naturally thought of her fiery temper father-in-law that she encountered yesterday. Her heart couldn't help feeling uneasy. Old Yu also mentioned this lightly, however getting the president's family to accept her as one of their own, was it really that easy? First of all there's his cynical mother, it wasn't easy for her mother-in-law to finally accept her. Then she inexplicably offended her father-in-law. What if when she goes to worship his grandpa and displeases his spirit in heaven, what will she do when a lightning strikes her dead? Lian grandpa from heaven, I have died long ago, but that doesn't make me Lei Zhenzi _ because Du Lacey was pondering over the cruel situation of whether the president's family would accept her or not. Her mood was extremely low. Finally when the car almost arrived at the destination, she suffered from motion sickness. Du Lacey suffered unspeakably dizziness from motion sickness. Her head felt like there was thousands of bees buzzing. Her entire stomach felt like a high-speed washing machine drumming internally, on the verge of collapsing. However, she refrained from vomiting in the car. Please stop joking around, the president is driving a Land Rover. Even if she vomits inside the car, how much would it cost to clean the car? In the final analysis, Du Lacey was a very frugal daughter-in-law. This extremely frugal daughter-in-law enduring it until the end. When the car door opened, Du Lacey was like a spring bouncing out of the car. She leaned against the pole and began to vomit like crazy. When she finished vomiting her breakfast, she vomited her lunch. When she finished vomiting her lunch, she vomited her dinner. Finally, there was only yellow water left. She leaned on the wire rod dry retching. Those who knew she was suffering from motion sickness. Those who didn't know would think she was suffering from electrocution. Young madam, are you all right? Old Yu who was standing on the side was worried to death. No. Vomiting, she wanted to say she's fine. When she began to vomit again, this time she even felt like her stomach was flipping out. At this time, Lian Jun has stopped the car and came over. Unexpectedly he had a pair of pale cloud and gentle breeze expression on. He waited for Du Lacey to finish vomiting, before slowly asking, still alive? Du Lacey wiped the tears from her eyes, and angrily said, I'm half dead. Lian Jun nodded, very good, you're still alive. Tat, President, how can you be so calm? Lian Jun said, if you're feeling unwell, go rest in the car for a while. Hearing the word, car, Du Lacey shook her head as if she has taken one pill and her eyes tearfully welled up. I'm begging you, please don't let me close to another terrifying traffic tool. Then let's head up the hill. Do you want to continue holding onto that electricity pole? Du Lacey looked at the president, then at the electricity pole, and then finally she pulled a long face as she said, I can no longer move. Lian Jun seems to heave a sigh of relief, then he came over and knelt down in front of her. Get on. Du Lacey hesitated, she was thinking whether she should get on or not. Or do you want a housekeeper the old man to carry you on his back up the mountain? Du Lacey was startled and quickly rushed on the president's back. The president's back was the same as last time, broad and warm making one feel a sense of security. However, Du Lacey didn't have the time to think about these, she was actually really bored. She has vomited to such state. Unexpectedly the president didn't even her a little pity at all, instead he apparently appeared angry. What was he angry about? Is it because she deliberately let Lian Anna sit in the driver-passenger seat and not act according to his plans? Sure enough, the real president is sure to take revenge. The mountain road was smooth and flat, not one bit bumpy. While leaning against Lian Jun's back, Du Lacey's mood was jolting like a tractor. However his hands were placed right on her butt, making her feel uneasy. Don't move, Lian Jun said impatiently. Du Lacey quickly stopped her movements. She thought, forget it, let the president touch if he wants to touch, if better than being thrown down the mountain. The most important thing right now is to protect her little life, thus she must make sacrifices sexually. The late Mr. Lian's grave was on top of the mountains. His cemetery consisted of only a simple gravestone. It wasn't big, but it was very quiet. Because Grandpa Lian and his wife had a deep relationship, after his death, Grandma Lian especially built a mansion near the cemetery to stay with the old man. Du Lacey didn't know anything of this, so when the president carried her into the courtyard of the mansion, seeing an old Italian woman sitting on the chair, her entire body froze. This is, Du Lacey asked timidly. My maternal grandmother. Maternal grandma. Du Lacey's mind flashed through the image of the old Lian madam who reside in the hospital and took the place's gossiping radio station. Then she issued a sigh. The difference between the two old granny are really not much different. Lian Jun's maternal grandma should already been in her 80s. Her hair have all turned white, while her figure was plump. Wearing a navy blue dress and a pair of presbyopic glasses, she held a walking stick in her hands while feeding the car in the courtyard. Grandma, Lian Jun called out to her in Mandarin. Ah, you've come. The old lady voice sounds soft, not only did not have a little bit of foreign accents, even some local dialect could be heard. Obviously, in addition to her ancestry, she is a genuine Chinese person. Grandma, Du Lacey also followed Lian Jun and timidly addressed her. The old lady was startled and shocked, then she seems to understand something and slightly nodded towards Du Lacey. Her smile was like the clear blue sky of Tuscany. Even though she didn't speak, however, she made others feel very comfortable and at ease. It seems that the president's family is not all that difficult to get along with, Du Lacey thought.